India, a land of sacred animals and spiritual traditions. India, one of Asia's most densely populated and culturally rich countries, offers an extraordinary array of life and contrasting traditions. In today's video on Fledgling Eagle, we'll delve into some of India's most fascinating customs, from sacred cows to the revered Ganges River, exploring the spiritual significance that makes this country unlike any other. Sacred animals in India, a deep spiritual connection with nature. Reverence for animals in Hinduism. India's deep spiritual and cultural ties to animals can be traced back to ancient Hindu texts, where animals are often seen as divine manifestations or symbols of gods and goddesses. The principle of ahimsa, or nonviolence, is central to many of these beliefs, influencing the way animals are viewed and treated in Indian society. The reverence of animals is not just a spiritual concept, it's a way of life deeply embedded in India's traditions. Each region of India has its own animal deities, but the cow stands out as the most sacred. It represents virtues like non-violence, motherhood, and fertility. In Hindu mythology, the cow is linked to Aditi, the mother of all gods, and plays an integral role in religious rituals. The cow, a symbol of selflessness and vitality. The cow's veneration in India extends beyond religious belief. It is seen as a symbol of selfless giving because it provides milk, a staple food in many Indian households, as well as dung, which is used for fuel and fertilizer in rural areas. In fact, cow dung is often applied to the floors of homes in rural settings, as it is believed to purify the living environment and keep evil spirits at bay. Though some rituals, like allowing cows to trample over people for good luck, might seem unusual to outsiders, these practices have been handed down through generations. They underscore a profound spiritual connection between humans and animals in India. Even in urban areas, cows are allowed to roam freely as an expression of respect for life and a reflection of India's deep spiritual traditions. Traditional healing and modern-day reverence. The reverence for cows also persists in modern health practices, particularly in Ayurveda, India's ancient system of medicine. Cow urine, considered sacred, is thought to have medicinal properties and is believed to treat various ailments, from skin diseases to even serious illnesses like COVID-19. Although this practice may appear unusual to those unfamiliar with Indian traditions, it remains an integral part of India's holistic approach to health and healing. Other revered animals in India. While the cow holds the most prominent place in Indian spiritual life, other animals are also venerated. The elephant, for example, is worshipped as the vehicle of Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Monkeys are honored as the embodiment of Lord Hanuman, the god of strength and devotion. Snakes, especially cobras, are also considered sacred and are worshipped during Nag Panchami, a festival dedicated to serpent gods. Legal protections for sacred animals. The cultural and religious significance of animals in India is reinforced by strict legal protections. The mistreatment or killing of sacred animals can lead to severe consequences, including fines and imprisonment. These laws help preserve the spiritual value of animals while also safeguarding the environment and ensuring the welfare of these revered creatures. If you enjoyed learning about the sacred connection between animals and spirituality in India, feel free to leave a comment and share where you're watching from. Your support motivates us to continue creating more engaging content. Thank you for being a part of Fledgling Eagle. Rituals and the tragic legacy of widow burning. Sati in India. The dark history of Sati, a widow's tragic fate. Sati, also known as widow burning, was a horrific custom where a widow would either voluntarily or be forced to join her deceased husband's funeral pyre. The belief was that this act would purify her soul and elevate her to a higher spiritual status. Though this practice was never universally accepted within Hinduism. The historical context and rise of Sati. Sati's roots trace back to ancient Hindu scriptures, though it was never widely practiced. In certain regions, however, it became socially entrenched, particularly as widows, who were often left destitute, became socially marginalized and ostracized. For many women, sati represented an escape from this cruel fate, offering a form of release from societal pressures and poverty. The Rup Kanwar incident, a turning point. The practice of sati remained largely under the radar until a shocking event in 1987. Rup Kanwar, an 18-year-old widow, self-immolated on her husband's pyre in the village of Deorala, Rajasthan. This incident caused nationwide uproar, drawing attention to the barbarity of the practice. It eventually led to the Indian government's enactment of the Sati Prevention Act in 1987, which made the practice of sati illegal, the end of sati and its lingering legacy. While the Sati Prevention Act formally outlawed the practice, its legacy continues to haunt India. Despite significant legal and social reforms to improve the lives of widows, deep-rooted stigma still affects them. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and social reformers continue to work for the empowerment and rights of widows, aiming to eliminate these antiquated customs, cremation, and the sacred Ganges River. In contrast to the tragic history of sati, Hindu funeral rites are centered around the idea of cremation. The ritual is believed to purify the soul, liberating it from the physical realm. The Ganges River, regarded as the holiest of all rivers, is the most sacred site for performing cremations, symbolizing spiritual liberation and the eternal cycle of life and death. The caste system and the untouchables, India's persistent social divide. The origins and structure of the caste system. The caste system, deeply rooted in Hinduism, has structured Indian society for centuries. This hierarchical system divides the population based on birth, occupation, and perceived spiritual purity. Over time, this rigid classification expanded to include the untouchables, or Dalits, who were relegated to the lowest strata of society. The four main castes. Brahmins, the priestly class responsible for religious rituals and the preservation of sacred knowledge. Kshatriyas, the warrior and ruling class, tasked with defense and governance. Vaishyas, the merchant and farmer class, managing economic activities and trade. Shudras, the laboring class performing manual work and service-oriented tasks. The untouchables, a legacy of marginalization. Below these four main castes are the Dalits, formerly known as untouchables, historically assigned the most menial and degrading jobs. They were considered so impure that their presence was believed to pollute the higher castes, leading to social segregation and exclusion. Dalits were barred from participating in many religious and social practices, living in separate communities far from the mainstream society. Caste in modern India, progress and struggles. Although the Indian Constitution abolished caste-based discrimination in 1950, its remnants continue to shape the country's social dynamics. Dalits still face significant challenges, including limited access to quality education, healthcare, and employment. In rural areas, caste discrimination remains entrenched, and Dalits often endure violence, humiliation, and social exclusion. The fight for social justice, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and legal reforms. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a key figure in the drafting of the Indian Constitution, was a Dalit himself and a staunch advocate for social justice. Policies like affirmative action were introduced to improve opportunities for Dalits in education and government employment. However, despite these efforts, caste-based discrimination remains a serious issue, and many Dalits still struggle for equality. The Linguistic Tapestry of India, 450 languages and countless dialects. India stands as one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world, home to nearly 450 languages and over 2,000 dialects. This incredible diversity is a testament to the country's rich cultural heritage, shaped by its long history of regional kingdoms, invasions, and migrations. Official languages, a reflection of India's diversity. India's constitution recognizes 22 official languages, which span various linguistic families such as Indo-Aryan, Dravidian, Tibeto-Burman, and Austroasiatic. Hindi is the most widely spoken language and serves as the central government's official language, with English also holding significant importance in administration and business. Regional languages and dialects, a localized linguistic identity. Each state in India typically has its own official language. For instance, Tamil is spoken in Tamil Nadu, Bengali in West Bengal, and Marathi in Maharashtra. Furthermore, within each language group, regional dialects add even more nuance to India's already complex linguistic landscape, ensuring that language is not just a means of communication, but a marker of community identity. The media and educational landscape, language at the forefront. India's media ecosystem reflects the country's linguistic diversity. Newspapers, television channels, and radio broadcasts cater to multiple languages, ensuring that citizens across the nation stay connected to local news and cultural content. In schools, children often receive instruction in their native languages, but Hindi and English are widely used as mediums of teaching, ensuring accessibility for a broader population. Language barriers and literacy challenges. Despite the linguistic richness, language can sometimes pose a barrier to communication, particularly for outsiders or travelers. While many urban residents are bilingual in Hindi and English, those in rural areas may only speak their regional dialects. However, India's literacy rate still presents a challenge. Over 15% of the population is illiterate, with rural areas facing the highest rates of illiteracy. Despite government and NGO efforts to bridge this gap, the challenge remains considerable. Modern-day slavery in India, the hidden crisis. Despite India's rapid economic development, millions of people continue to endure conditions akin to slavery, trapped in various forms of exploitation. It's estimated that 14 million individuals are still caught in systems like debt bondage, forced labor, and human trafficking. Debt bondage, the most widespread form of slavery. Debt bondage, also known as begar, is the most common form of modern slavery in India. It primarily affects Dalits and marginalized groups. People fall into debt due to high-interest loans or inherited debts. Unable to repay, they are forced to work without compensation, sometimes for generations. Although illegal, this practice persists, particularly in rural communities. Child labor and exploitation. Children from impoverished families are especially vulnerable to exploitation. Many are trafficked and forced into domestic labor, factory work, or even sexual exploitation. Denied education and the freedom to live as children, these young victims face brutal conditions with little hope for escape. Sex trafficking, exploiting vulnerable women and children. Sex trafficking is another grim reality, where women and children, especially from marginalized communities, are trafficked for sexual exploitation. Often lured by false promises of jobs or marriage, they find themselves trapped in a life of abuse and forced labor, unable to break free from their captors. Corruption and legal gaps, enabling exploitation. Despite laws against forced labor and human trafficking, weak enforcement and local corruption often allow these practices to continue unchecked. In many cases, authorities either turn a blind eye or directly enable the continuation of these abuses, making it nearly impossible for victims to seek justice or escape. Efforts to combat slavery, a long road ahead. Government efforts, alongside the work of NGOs and international organizations, are slowly addressing modern-day slavery. However, the entrenched nature of these exploitative systems presents significant challenges. Much work remains to be done to eradicate this hidden crisis from India's social fabric. The flavorful world of Indian cuisine, vegetarian delights and spices. Indian cuisine is a rich, colorful tapestry shaped by centuries of cultural exchanges, regional diversity, and religious influences. While meat is a common ingredient in many parts of the country, vegetarianism is widespread, driven by religious beliefs, Cultural practices and economic factors. Religious and cultural roots of vegetarianism. In India, vegetarianism is often closely tied to religious and ethical principles. Major religions like Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism emphasize ahimsa, nonviolence, encouraging followers to avoid harming animals. As a result, India has one of the largest vegetarian populations in the world, with around 30% of Indians adhering to plant-based diets. The importance of spices, a flavorful tradition. Indian cuisine is globally renowned for its rich use of spices, with India being the world's largest producer of spices. Key ingredients such as cumin, coriander, turmeric, cardamom, cinnamon, and chili not only enhance the flavor, but are also celebrated for their medicinal properties in traditional healing systems like Ayurveda. Staples and regional dishes. Indian food is incredibly diverse, reflecting the country's regional variety. While rice, wheat, often in the form of chapati or naan, and lentils are common staples, each region boasts its own signature dishes. From dosas and samosas to biryani and tandoori, Indian cuisine offers something for every palate. In rural areas, meals often feature locally sourced ingredients, while urban centers blend traditional flavors with modern twists. Eating etiquette and hospitality. In India, food is central to hospitality and is often shared in communal settings. It is customary to eat with the right hand, as the left is considered impure. Eating with hands is more common than using utensils, and it's seen as a more natural and meaningful way to connect with the food. The magic of Indian cinema, Bollywood and beyond. Indian cinema is a central part of the country's cultural identity, with India being the largest film producer in the world. Producing over 1,100 films annually, Indian cinema far surpasses Hollywood in sheer volume and offers an unparalleled variety of content. Bollywood and its global impact. Bollywood, the Hindi-language film industry based in Mumbai, is perhaps the most internationally recognized segment of Indian cinema. However, Bollywood represents only a fraction of the country's vast film production. India boasts numerous regional film industries, such as Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Kannada, and Malayalam cinema, each catering to specific cultural tastes and languages. These regional industries have garnered global followings, further enriching the diversity of Indian cinema. Theatrical and surreal storytelling. Indian films are known for their vibrant, larger-than-life storytelling. Whether through colorful sets, elaborate song and dance sequences, or dramatic action scenes, Indian films embrace a style of hyperbole that celebrates life's joy, emotion, and resilience. Characters often perform impossible stunts or break into impromptu songs during intense emotional moments, captivating audiences with the sheer spectacle of it all. Gender and social issues in Indian cinema. Indian cinema has long been criticized for its portrayal of women, often relegating them to secondary roles or stereotypical characters. Bollywood, in particular, has been known for its patriarchal nature, with male leads dominating the screen. However, in recent years, there has been a growing movement toward creating more nuanced, independent female characters. Films now tackle more social issues, exploring the complex lives of women in contemporary India. India is a land of contradictions, where rich traditions, vibrant cultures, and deep spirituality coexist with modern challenges. From sacred rituals and social divides to the dazzling magic of cinema and cuisine, India offers a truly unique and profound experience. While the nation faces many struggles, it remains a place of immense beauty, resilience, and depth. For those who seek to understand its multifaceted nature, India is an endless journey of discovery and reflection. The more you explore, the more you realize there is still so much more to learn and experience.